Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sattology means science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which is science of a study of fake lie or imagination. So I have a very good friend and a very special guest, analyst in India, very popular amongst the youth. Without delay, let us welcome Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Abhijit, before we start off, we see the beautiful sign of hand on your many people cannot understand, but in India people can understand what it is for. So have you changed your loyalties now?
No. See, I'm a great supporter of extinct species or near extinction species. Like I have a Triceratops t-shirt. I have a dodo t-shirt. This is one more in the line of soon to be extinct species that I'm wearing.
Now the extinct species you spoke, and there are a lot of meanings out there. Extinct superpowers, we have seen superpowers come and go. And what is happening today, in one of the last shows you said that Russia is not going to invade, and Russia has not invaded literally. They've just been doing a peacekeeping mission right now. So what it shows the weakness of US in the international minds, what it shows.
Look, it's not really a peacekeeping mission, right? It's a but it's not an invasion either, because this is just a formal reinforcement of an invasion that had already happened in 2014. It wasn't an invasion, it was a guerrilla movement. They have now declared independence. Russia has accepted that independence, and they've sent in troops as part of the Mutual Defense Pact. Now, the weakness in all of this is, where is American cost benefit analysis going? First of all, America isn't on solid ground itself. Okay, they went in and they separated Kosovo from Serbia using a bombing campaign without NATO authorization. They invaded Iraq without UN authorization. They invaded Iraq also without UN authorization. The relevant UN resolution for Libya involved a ceasefire, not a regime change, but they went ahead and made it a regime change mission, right? The problem here is, this is a bit like, the pot calling the kettle black. So Russia has learned from all of this, and Russia is simply doing what America has been doing thus far. Fine, some of the parameters may be different, but it's essentially the same action, right? The weakness of American foreign policy in all of this is that it is getting bogged down. How many times have we spoken about these DC think tanks? The groupthink that they engage in, all self-referential turds. What do you expect from this? Because these people are just reinforcing their own biases. They're all talking of talking points. Nobody's actually trying to temper down what's happening. They just pretend that Russia has no security concerns, and they are the only ones that are allowed to have security concerns. That's not the way it works, right? So it's fine. I mean, this is how all empires ultimately destroy themselves. And, it doesn't require a big superpower to take down an empire. Empires can be brought down by tiny things. So, for example, Britain was brought down by the bad economics of mercantilism, right? The Roman Empire was brought down not by some great other empire. It was brought down by these small tribes on the northern frontier, right? The Germanic tribes. So it's fine. It's how empires fall ultimately, and that's what you're going to see happen here.
Now the again, this is what the fourth show I'm again quoting with you. The economy, the American economy is consistently getting beaten up by the bad policies. And do you think that this will have an impact on the global acceptance of US dollar yet?
Well, look, I think the indicators seem to show that the economy is recovering, but it's also in doldrums because of inflation and things like that. I think if you look at the inflation rates, they're outstripping the growth rates. So the real growth might not be there. We still don't know, because what I'm getting is a whole load of spin on all the news. I'm not getting the primary data, right? I'm getting a sort of editorialized reporting through magazines and websites and things like that. The problem here is, remember, the economies of the world, they started taking off after industrialization, when industrialization forced the rule of law. When industrialization, and what does the rule of law do? It tells you clearly what you can and what you cannot do. And in the information age, especially, you grow where the mind is without fear. Today, you have a situation where you've returned to medieval Europe. You don't know what the next Twitter pogrom is going to be, what the next horde that's going to come to lynch you, verbally lynch you, online lynch mob, for some thought crime or speech crime or whatever. The cost of compliances are going up. The taxes in several states like California are going up. First, business competitiveness is going to go down. And mind you, it's all the folks that are migrating to Texas. So they'll turn Texas into a blue state, and then Texas will go down the same path that California has gone down. Because see, this is like the Indian diaspora. Na? In the Indian diaspora are a disease. Everywhere they go, they got screwed over by socialism at home. They land up in California and they want socialism there also. Right? So I'm kind of hoping all their kids will be out on the streets begging for food by those rail tracks that you see, because that Indian diaspora really deserves their kids to be out on the streets begging. It's karma for all their spreading the misery, as we call it. There's nothing you can do about this. This, like I said, is the beginning of the slow decline. It's going to happen. The cost of compliances is going up. So it's not just, like that, for example, the well-intentioned. Remember, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. I support animal rights. But when you suddenly pass a law saying pigs should have minimum this amount of room, and how that affects the cost of, say, ham and bacon and all of that, it's immediate knockdown effects. The cost of food is also going up because of it. But this is a cyclic, it's not even a cyclic pattern now, because there doesn't seem to be any course correction happening. Yeah, there was a school board recall where they called back those 3 woke school counselors or school board members or whatever, but it's not sustained enough to reverse the rot.
Now, when we look at the international politics now, India has taken some very clear stands in the United Nations, and China has obviously taken a very clear stance for Russia. So both India and Russia have supported Russia. India and China have supported Russia. Now, when it comes to the Asian unity, now Japan is equally good player, but it is an ally of the West. So what do you say as an Asian bloc? Do you think the Asian bloc will emerge with respect to the Western bloc, the European bloc?
No. Look, India has not supported the Russian position. If an invasion actually happens, India will condemn Russia. The point is, it will not condemn Russia harshly. Okay. And there's a reason for it. We need Russia to balance off against China. It's very easy for America to be sitting 5,000-6,000 kilometers away saying, yeah, it's fine if Russia and China combine. It's not fine for us, because that problem is in our doorstep. Right? So this whole notion that, and especially the way Afghanistan was abandoned, I think there's a major trust deficit with regards to American assurances. Because ultimately, when the going gets tough, they'll say, look, we may be in an alliance with you, but ultimately the responsibility for your defense lies with you. Okay. So I think what was, and the way that they deliberately instigated Ukraine and Zelensky, knowing full well that this has been a pattern for the last 20 years, where every corrupt Ukrainian president ends up blaming Russia for their ills and for their own incompetence. Tell me, Ukraine has completely divorced cut off its economy from Russia in 2014 when the Crimea annexation happened. Now it's what, 8 years down the line? How is the Ukrainian economy not doing any better? Theoretically, what was stopping it from doing any better? It hasn't done any better. No? So this is all a whole load of bunkum that these people come up with. There is going to be, I think, America's credibility as an ally is going down by the day. I think everybody outside the alliance sees it, but nobody sees it here. As for an Asian, this thing, it's simply not happening. China and us are reconcilable. And as long as China is a mutual enemy, we will be friendly with America. That's about it. Japan is much more serious about China than America seems to be at the moment. And with the Japanese, we have a good working relationship. The problem is Japan is completely sold on this alliance architecture with America, right? At the same time, in private, not in public, in private, they always wonder, why is it that you keep saying China is the biggest threat, but you keep dealing with Russia as the biggest threat, and that too for, lost causes like Ukraine. Remember, during the Obama administration, they also threw Japan under the truck when the entire issue of the Senkaku Islands came up, when China was trying to lay claim to it. Obama issued a statement saying, well, it's to protect Japanese territory, implying that the Senkakus were not Japanese territory, right? There is a lot of doubt creeping up in Japan now if America is taking this seriously. But I don't think there can be an Asian alliance per se, because that would require Japan to kind of move away from interoperability with America. It would require India to move towards interoperability with Japan. Not happening. It's probably insurmountable.
So one of the things which really affect the American economy right now is the increase of prices of import from China. That is increasing day by day. But at the same time, the alternatives of imports are not being found within USA or other countries. So do you think that in the event of a war, it might happen that the blackmail can happen to the American economy through passing through the Indian Ocean, where the Chinese can delay certain supplies in case that war happens?
Look, I mean, that's very hypothetical. I don't think a war is going to happen. I think China knows how to manage its relations quite well. But in case it happens, that has always been the Chinese plan to kind of delay supplies. I'm not too sure how long China can sustain that kind of a blockade, given how good the American Navy is. I know it's going through a lot of problems, but it's still way better than the Chinese Navy for the time being.
So coming back to the Russia and Europe. Now, Europe, you are well aware that how it is dependent on Russian gas. And Germany cannot give it up because there is no alternative supplies. Very clear. Supply and demand. Either they get it from Iran, which is again on the banned list, or they get it from US, and US is not producing it. Biden is asking Saudi Arabia to produce it more. So now the power is coming back to OPEC, and the oil is about to touch $100 a barrel. $100 about to touch within a month. And the American prices go up, including India, prices will go up. So in this global play, now fighting with Russia doesn't make any sense. So what do you think? Now, my question to you, because you have a lot of insights into the American think tanks, or not so think tanks. What is going on in their mind? What are they advising to the American administration?
Look, they don't advise the American administration. Okay, they all sit down and decide what's the latest bullshit of the day that we can all peddle. There's never any critical thinking happening on anything anymore. And that's actually quite worrying. It wasn't always like that. This trend started off under Obama, realistically. And you could see it embryonically during George Bush's time as well. Do you remember when Bush decided to invade Iraq in 2003? Um, Everybody backed him. Hillary Clinton backed him. The New York Times backed him. The Washington Post backed him. Thomas Friedman, all of them backed the invasion. Nobody stood on principle at that point of time, right? But that was still embryonic. Now it's become absolute groupthink. So they are not giving advice. What they're doing is they are either taking talking points. They're basically exchanging talking points. Let's put it that way.
Abhijit, one last question because I know you have to go. If you can give a detailed answer on this, the possibility now, Truth Social was launched yesterday by President Trump, and it has broken all barriers of downloads. Almost like 9 million downloaded in the first day. My waiting time is in hundreds of thousands right now. That's how popular it is. Now, the Facebook has been caught in India creating riots again in the Mangalore incident. Now, Facebook and still the Indian government and globally governments are using Facebook as a major communication tool. So, do you think that the social media must be governed by an international law? In America is not a party to ICJ, by the way.
True, but here's the point. They're all based out of America and they can always withdraw out of India. But yes, I think we shouldn't be worried about withdrawing out of India. Look, Nigeria, do you remember what Nigeria, how they screwed over Twitter? They banned Twitter, and after that, Twitter had to come crawling back to the table for a relatively small country. I mean, it's not small, but anyway, compared to India, it is like Nigeria. Or was it Uganda? I forget. It's the same thing here. They don't respect weakness, they only respect strength. So, unless you're willing to show displays of power and ruthlessness, they're not going to listen. At some point, you have to ensure that they comply with local laws. And the problem is, our government is simply incapable of doing it because our prime minister is too hell bent on getting his Nobel Prize. He's not getting it, but he thinks he's getting it.
We know Nobel Peace Prize, that how Nobel Peace Prize is generally a euphemism to promote Christianity. We all know that. If you unless you are belong to their club, you won't get a Nobel Peace Prize or some their ideals. Now the next question will be again the Global Peace Prize and other things. United Nations is still following the old colonial model, and there is a threat of expelling Russia from the permanent five. Do you think that is a possibility now?
No, it can't be done.
Why do you think so?
Can't be done. See, when China replaced Taiwan in the Security Council, it was done through the accreditation. The accreditation of China was changed from the Republic of China to the People's Republic of China. Where is there a scope for doing that for Russia today? Right? Number one. Number two, there are very few countries that will go along with it. Say the 50 countries of the West go along with it, but nobody else will go along with it. And I can tell you quite clearly, China and France will end up vetoing it if it comes to that. So there's no way that can happen.
Now, again, the harshest sanctions are being talked about by the West and UK particularly and US particularly. Now, the Russia is already going through the harshest sanctions till today, as of today. Like, they're not a single Russian businessman is allowed to open a bank account in the US unless they're US citizens. Now, it's still going on right now. So do you think what more can happen now? It's already reached the limits unless they block off the trade.
It's nowhere near the toughest sanctions imposed. They're going to try with tough sanctions. The problem is they chose the wrong time. If Europe goes along with these sanctions, remember today what has happened is that Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, some channels are reporting as he's stopped the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. He hasn't stopped it. He said we're delaying certification of it. He's not stopped it. And remember, if they don't get gas, they can't organize supplies within a year, 2 years for the kind of piped gas that they get direct from Russia. So what happens out here is, if they don't freeze out this winter, they will freeze out next winter. And there's nothing anybody can do to stop that. And you'll have about 200,000-300,000 Europeans dying of freezing to death of cold like the little match girl. I think that presents a whole different reality check. Remember, the longer these sanctions continue, and they're not very harsh at the moment, incidentally, they're at best token sanctions. The longer these sanctions continue, the more and more and more France, Germany, Italy, possibly Spain will attempt to undermine them from within.
So do you think the sanction talk by the American leaders, especially Kamala Harris spoke about it and Biden spoke about Kamala Harris Munich conference, everybody knows what's going on. And so do you think that that is just for the domestic audience, that they are appearing tough in front of Russia?
Almost entirely. Because look, the very fact that they sent Kamala Harris should tell you that they don't take it seriously, because everybody knows that nobody listens to Kamala Harris, even in the White House. She's locked up in one corner. She has zero policy influence. I mean, they might as well have sent me as the American representative.
Good idea.
Kamala's bigger than me, and she has more hair than me. But I bet you my laughter sounds better than her cackling. But yeah, I suspect I have more policy influence in Washington, in the White House, than Kamala Harris does at the moment. So I think it was a backhanded compliment to the Munich Security Conference.
I mean, that's a great way to put it, actually, because people who do not know, do not follow, they won't understand unless they get. I think this viewers you should take this line and analyze it. Why Abhijit said that. Now, the last question. I know you have to go. Abhijit, what happens if, it's a hypothetical scenario, if the current Security Council and the permanent 5 or permanent 3, actually, I would say, propose India's name and replace one of the other members? Is it possible? It's not happening. Anyway. So thank you so much, Abhijit. I know you have to go. And all the viewers, do watch it, comment it, and let us know your feedback. Namaste. Thank you.
Bye.